Welcome to the Pipeline Podcast. Today is September 24th, and we're going to be going into Charlie Kirk's assassination conspiracy theories. We got the best one. We kind of need to start with a little bit of context. The crazy conspiracy theory that people are pushing is Charlie Kirk was killed by pro-Israel people, and we're kind of going to cover that today and explain it. The first thing we need to do is talk about AIPAC. If you follow the channel, you're probably familiar with this, but I feel like a lot of people aren't. AIPAC is like a pro-Israel lobbying group called the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. And basically they just donate to a lot of politicians to take a pro-Israel stance. And it seems like nowadays we're kind of seeing a lot of people pushing an America First stance, and they kind of conflict with each other. I have it's just a YouTube short that kind of explains AIPAC a little bit, so we're gonna watch this just so that we have the context.
Getting your education from YouTube shorts.
Hell yeah.
Oh
But yeah,
my
this
God.
is easy to watch. Gets right to the point.
What is AIPAC and what do they do?
So to answer that question, I'll zoom out a little bit, which is why do we even care about what AIPAC is? Israel's war
Please, tell
on
us.
Gaza is entering its 13th month, and AIPAC has played a huge outsized role in this year's elections. The role of the Israel lobby goes back half a century plus to Israel's founding, upon which it became the top recipient of U.S. military aid and economic aid, but that is dwarfed by the amounts that we've given since the war in Gaza started last year. You know, the investigation that we just did looks at the $100 million that they spent this year on elections. This is just a lobbying group. It's just a very effective lobbying group. It's like the trade industry or the agricultural industry or, business interests. It's just that it is extremely effective at what it does, and it has almost no opponents. So that allows AIPAC to have this outsized power over not just U.S. foreign policy, but domestic policy, and as we'll get into now, over electoral politics.
Sure, I think that she explains it pretty well. They're just a very powerful lobbying group, and they do a lot of stuff like this. This is like the cannery mission where they put out hate pieces against people that aren't super pro-Israel, and they donate to a lot of U.S. representatives, sometimes a lot of money. I believe here it says $19 million. They have just a huge amount of congressional allies. I just have a couple sources. I just kind of want to show they have a very big web of people in the government that support them. And
a lot of our elected officials are supported by AIPAC.
A huge number of them.
And so this is a foreign lobbyist group that is lobbying America, giving American politicians money to do things at the behest of another country.
Yeah, it's not in America. It's not an America First super PAC. And that's kind of the issue that people have, especially right now on the right. We're seeing a lot of people on the right for the first time kind of come out and say maybe Israel is going a little overboard in Gaza, hey. And yeah, basically that there's the conflict here between you could say AIPAC or pro-Israel supporters and these other people on the right. They're both on the right for the most part that are America First, Nick Fuentes type stuff, those kind of people.
So at the very least, AIPAC is one of the largest lobbying firms in America. And as far as I know, it is one of the only foreign-focused organizations not registered with FARA. I'm not sure what the other ones are. Well, as an example, didn't Paul Manafort or someone get in trouble, however many years ago, because they were acting as an agent of Russia, but they weren't technically registered? And so they're, doing the same thing, except that they're not from Israel.
Yeah, that's kind of the argument. AIPAC says that they're not specifically funded by Israel as a country, as a foreign entity, so they don't have to register under FARA. That's kind of the loophole that they use. And they're not the only PAC that does this.
Really?
Yeah, there are others, but it's harder for imagine if Russia made an AIPAC style thing and they were just getting Russian oligarchs to fund it. The US would definitely make them register under FARA.
I thought AIPAC was owned by Israel.
Well, they are, but not technically. a lot of their money, it comes from like pro-Israel people. But yeah, not specifically like the Israeli government. So that's kind of how they get around that. And that leads us into what we got to talk about next.
So it's an organization in America that's registered as a non-profit organization that makes its money based on donations and memberships.
Yeah, exactly. And who donates to AIPAC? This is kind of a fun one. AIPAC's predecessor was called the American Zionist Council, which is kind of funny on its own. But here's what happened. In 1962, the U.S. ordered the American Zionist Council to register under FARA. And so they kind of went through a rebrand and turned into AIPAC. And like that's why AIPAC exists, because they didn't want to register under FARA, the American Zionist Council. So they kind of like disbanded and made AIPAC, which, they run the little loophole so they don't have to register under FARA, which is kind of a conflict of interest in a lot of people's head. A lot of people think that. And then here is just a little source on the American Zionist Council. So it was founded in 1949, and it represented matters related specifically to Zionism following the establishment of Israel. And then, they disbanded after they were told they had to register under FARA. Some more context before we get into our next little bit here. But there was this dude, JFK. I don't know if you remember him. He got assassinated, just like Charlie Kirk. Not trying to say there's a connection there. But he was saying some stuff about how maybe we should like limit nuclear testing. And he was saying this kind of stuff in 1963. He was like we'll watch a video on it, but he addresses the UN about like a ban on nuclear testing in 1963. Israel didn't develop nuclear weapons until 1967. So at that time, they were still developing the nuclear weapons, so they needed to test them. So that UN resolution, they didn't like it. We all know what happened to JFK. He got assassinated, so this is obviously before he did. We're going to watch just the end of this video here, and then let me see if we need any more context before the video. Oh, okay, so we'll just go over it again. So in 1962, we have the American Zionist Council being ordered to register under FARA. Also, we have the UN, backed by JFK, prohibiting nuclear weapon tests in the atmosphere, outer space, and underwater, which is a conflict of interest for Israel because they were still developing their nuclear weapons at this time. So let's just listen to the video.
2 years ago, I told this body that the United States had proposed and was willing to sign a limited test ban treaty. Today, that treaty has been signed. It will not put an end to war. It will not remove basic conflicts. It will not secure freedom for all, but it can be a lever. And Archimedes, in explaining the principles of the lever, was said to have declared to his friends, "Give me a place where I can stand, and I shall move the world." My fellow inhabitants of this planet, let us take our stand here in this assembly of nations, and let us see that if we, in our own time, can move the world to a just and lasting peace.
All right, so that's it. That's JFK in 1993 signing with the UN like a test ban resolution on nukes. And at that time, Israel is developing nuclear weapons. Also, the American Zionist Council at that same time is being forced to register under FARA. And so that's kind of like the people that follow this globalist conspiracy theory. That's kind of why they think like pro-Zionist people assassinated JFK. Who knows about that? But that's where some of the conclusions are drawn, and we really kind of need to go over that today. So yeah, here's just the source. It was 1963 in November when JFK got assassinated, which would have been like 2 months. 2 months after he gave this speech at the UN. And then this is where other people are like drawing similarities between JFK and Charlie Kirk's assassination. So on September 12th, 2 days after Charlie Kirk was assassinated, the UN General Assembly endorsed the New York Declaration on a two-state solution between Israel and Palestine. I'm not too familiar with this, so we're going to take a look at it. But I do know, you look at the in favor 142 against 10, the U.S. was one of these against, and that's just because of how co-opted American politics are by like AIPAC, that literally the whole world is saying, yeah, we should agree on this two-state solution, and like 1 of 10 countries, of course, is the U.S. voting against it. But let's just take a look at this for like a minute and look into it. So it involves an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, a release of all the hostages held there, which probably isn't going to happen, and a viable and sovereign Palestinian state. It calls for the disarmament of Hamas, which will be hard for them to volunteer to do.
Yeah, so I mean, it just looks like Israel just doesn't like. The biggest thing here is they just want them to leave. They want them to get out of the country because they want it to
Yeah,
be theirs.
Israel also voted against this resolution. They don't want it. And
Yeah, and we don't want it either because Israel doesn't want it. That's
because of
what we-
AIPAC, honestly, yeah, and our
Right, yeah.
close ties with Israel. It's not because it's not an America first stance that we voted on here. It was
Yeah.
an Israel first vote.
This would just stop them from being able to clear out all the land like they are right now.
Yeah, and also it could just be a bullshit resolution in the first place. Like, do you really think
Yeah.
Hamas is going to disband on its own because the UN voted for them to do it? They're not. Um,
No, probably not. But
probably
that's-
not.
You gotta send in the UN peacekeepers.
Right. We have the Israeli ambassador, Danny Donin. He's quoted saying, the declaration is this one-sided declaration will not be remembered as a step toward peace, only as another hollow gesture that weakens the assembly's credibility. So yeah, that's kind of the argument against it, which I would say it's well put. But also to say that it's a one-sided declaration, I mean, the war in Gaza is one-sided, so like don't forget that.
Yeah, I'm not sure how is the declaration one-sided. I don't.
Because it calls for a viable and sovereign Palestinian state.
What's wrong with that? I don't.
Well,
Is that bad?
if you're pro-Israel, yeah, you're probably against that. You think if
Oh, I
they
see.
become a sovereign state, they're just gonna keep attacking you, which could be true.
Again, being a first world country, doing what they're doing to a third world country is just terrible. It could be different if it was 2 third world countries, but it's not.
No, it's not at all. The globalist conspiracy theorists see a correlation between this UN General Assembly and the one with JFK before he got assassinated. Even though, Charlie Kirk isn't the president. But we'll tie Trump into this, don't worry. We're getting there.
So one day, after that all happened, my girlfriend came home and she's like, "Did you hear the conspiracy theory about Charlie Kirk?"
And you're
I'm
like, which one?
The left, the right, Trump, or Israel?
So a little bit of context on Donald Trump and his opinions on Israel and how they've changed from the beginning, the first time he was president to now. So this is how it kind of started in 2016. Before Trump is president, the Obama administration in its final weeks took the unprecedented step of abstaining from a United Nations Security Council vote that condemned Israeli settlements, which is basically the same thing that we're doing currently in the UN. We're voting against stuff like that even till today.
The Republicans and Democrats can both decide that fuck the Palestinians in favor of the Israelis.
Absolutely, yeah. But at first, Trump was against this. He made some comments about it that he didn't like these Israeli settlements, and we have a video of it. So, and we have a comment from Trump having a problem with this, which is like an anti-Israel stance, if you're following along.
Well, this is almost 10 years ago at this point.
Yeah,
He's come around.
Yeah, I
He's
believe
changed his mind.
Exactly, yeah, it's 9 years ago.
As far as settlements, I'd like to see you hold back on settlements for a little bit.
That's basically all he says.
And secondly, on the settlement issue, are you both on the same page?
As far as settlements, I'd like to see you hold back on settlements for a little bit.
You hear that
We'll,
upward inflection?
work
He's shaking in his fucking boots. What the fuck?
something
Hey,
out, but I would like
you
to see a
please-
deal be made. I think a deal will be made. BB and I have known each other a long time. A smart man, great negotiator, and I think we're going to make a deal. It might be a bigger and better deal than people in this room even understand. That's a possibility. So let's see what we do.
Let's try it.
And that's all BB says. Let's try.
He's like, you don't want to get rid of Palestine? Well, we'll try.
Yeah, Bibi Netanyahu's like, oh man, it's on now. Yeah, the title of the video calls it an awkward exchange over West Bank settlements.
That was definitely awkward. Yeah, the president, it showed Trump asking for permission from Netanyahu and hoping that he wouldn't talk shit to him in front of everyone.
This is how it started with Trump on Israel. And we'll kind of go into how it's been going now. So we've covered this picture on the channel, but this is what Donald Trump posted on Truth Social after Charlie Kirk died. A picture of Charlie hugging Trump and an Israeli flag behind Charlie, which is like, what's the point of that? It's kind of weird. So we have another video. This is 2 months ago of how Trump speaks to Netanyahu. And this is a video of Netanyahu giving Trump papers where Netanyahu nominated Trump for, it's so hilarious. Netanyahu nominated Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize because Trump used stealth bombing like bunker busters, Iran's nuclear facilities. So Netanyahu nominated Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. That's just kind of funny.
Well, I mean, to be fair, Obama got a peace prize.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
we were killing a million Iraqis, right?
Well, you know, he got the prize first and then was like, okay, cool. Now I can do whatever I want. But let's listen to how Trump, you know, talks to Bibi.
I didn't know.
You should get it. It's nominating you for the Peace Prize, which is well-deserved. And you should get it.
Well-deserved.
Thank you very much. This I didn't know. Wow. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Coming from you in particular, this is very meaningful. Thank you very much, Bibi.
Thank you. Thank you for everything you're doing.
Thank you, Bibi.
It's a great honor.
I don't know if you can see the difference between this video and the video from, I believe it's 2016 or 2017 of them talking. But it looks like Trump is now a very huge supporter of Netanyahu, enough to where he'll even attack another country like Iran at Israel's bidding. So that's kind of fun stuff when in 2017, 2016-ish, he's asking Israel to like hold off on these West Bank settlements. So huge flip-flop there. What do you think happened? Globalist conspiracy theorists will say Epstein. They got like Epstein dirt on Trump, and Epstein is like an Israeli intelligence agent. That's the conspiracy there. That's why we're covering this, just to show you how people will kind of come to that conclusion.
Well, I mean, there's the one thing with the Epstein files when it was all going down where Trump did like a 180. A lot of people were saying that he might be scared of Israel for some reason.
Yeah.
And so maybe we're seeing, you know, how he's talking and his change from trying to go against settlements to getting a Nobel Peace Prize nomination. Maybe there was something that happened there to cause that turn.
Yeah, absolutely. At first, I believe he wanted to release the Epstein files, or he said he was gonna. And then he says the Epstein files are like fake news or whatever.
Well,
and anyone
wanted to bring Cash Patel and Dan Bongino in and uncover everything and get everyone. And then as soon as Harold and Kumar get there, they
there's no conspiracy. It's gone.
Yeah, there's what trafficking, what black book? He didn't traffic people to anyone.
There's no client list.
Yeah, that's why Ghislaine Maxwell's in prison, because she trafficked people to no one. The hilarious, it's just so funny. It is
so hilarious.
Crazy that it's funny.
And we got to bring Cash Patel into this. So the FBI is doing the investigation into Charlie Kirk's assassination. The conspiracy continues with people alleging that Cash Patel's girlfriend is an Israeli honeypot agent. On the channel, we looked into it. It looks to be kind of fake news, but we're going to explain why people think this in the first place. So a little bit of background information on Cash Patel's girlfriend. Her name is Alexis Wilkins. And fun fact I learned today, she's a country singer. So this is her Spotify page if you want to take a listen. It is like very patriotic music. She's suing because this guy said that she was an Israeli honeypot, basically. He's getting sued right now, which is fun stuff. This is kind of how the rumor started, origins of the false rumor that she's an Israeli honeypot. She used to work for PragerU. If you know PragerU, they do a lot of like, it's a very conservative, almost like a media company, but I believe they're actually like a like a learning company or something. They make like educational videos, but with like a right-wing twist.
I just figured it was the TPU, another TPUSA.
It's basically, yeah, conservative media nonprofit, similar to TPUSA. That is a good way to put it. So she used to work for PragerU, and then also the CEO of PragerU, Marissa Streit. She once served as an Israeli intelligence agent, and so that's kind of how people linked Kash Patel's girlfriend to the conspiracy theory that she's an Israeli honeypot, if that makes sense.
Is that a lot of these large influencer like organizations or podcasters, things like that, they, the FBI and other ABC agencies or even Mossad,
the ABC boys,
they do have it's reasonable to suspect, in my opinion, to have at least one or two people infiltrate those places, right? Or at least be in those places.
Well, there's proof of this kind of stuff happening before. I mean,
yeah, I know. That's why I'm saying it.
And then also we see this with like Chinese actors that like join the military to steal secrets. I mean, stuff like this happens.
Well, and the main thing that I'm saying is that the intelligence agencies, there's speculation online that intelligence agencies infiltrate the moderator teams or inside like people of larger YouTube people like celebrities, podcasters, specifically like political ones. There always is that potential. I mean, you look at all the different online cases or the Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping case and things like that, where these people in echo chambers meet other people, and it's usually the feds or one person acting on behalf of an intelligence agency that helps radicalize and then gives these people the means to do things. And so federal agents infiltrating different communities, especially large political communities, is not something that is unheard of.
Yeah, exactly. It does happen. And so it could be possible that that kind of stuff is happening with people you wouldn't really expect. So that's kind of like the conspiracy theorists will say, like this guy, Kyle Serafine, says Kash Patel's girlfriend is a honeypot. We got more honeypots as well. There's a conspiracy, we'll get to it near the end, that like Charlie Kirk's wife was also an Israeli honeypot. So like we'll cover, it's spicy. We'll cover all that kind of stuff. Next up, there's a pipeline conspiracy, so we have to cover it on the channel. This is the Pipeline Podcast, in case you didn't know. Candace Owens has her great conspiracy theory about there's like a secret pipeline tunnel in the real shooter that assassinated Charlie Kirk. It's worth looking into. She's not saying this is what happened. She's saying it's worth looking into an underground pipeline network underneath where Charlie Kirk got shot. So we got to cover that. This conspiracy theory stems off of, it was like a leaked video to like TMZ or Vanity Fair or something, a video of like the shooter running somewhere after Charlie Kirk was assassinated, and it looks like the people that leaked the video might have worked for this valve company, and the conspiracy is like valve companies often have close ties with intelligence agencies because of like espionage. You don't want anyone fucking with your water or gas pipelines.
Very true.
So that's kind of how this conspiracy theory started, and she kind of talks about it, and we got to cover it on the channel because this is the Pipeline Podcast.
I do have a few more questions that could be answered, or maybe some leads that you guys could be exploring, if you will, because once we began learning about that house next door that's been vacant and is owned by UVU, and once we began looking into the witnesses and finding a common last name and looking into Caldera Engineering.
Yeah, that's the company that makes these valves. And the company's basically owned by just like a large family that lives in the area of where Charlie Kirk got shot. It's like a big family company. They own a lot of property also next to the university. And they make a lot of valves that maybe, I don't think it's been confirmed yet, that like the university uses for their water supply, stuff like that.
As we did last week. Again, not implying that they did anything wrong, just telling you factually that witness whose footage ended up in the hands of TMZ runs an engineering company that has a presence worldwide, and they specialize in making these valves. I started thinking
that company also has contracted with Israel before as well.
thinking, once people told me that valves historically have a connection to the government and the deep state.
What?
Yeah, because there's like higher security for this kind of stuff, like your natural gas pipelines, your infrastructure, like utility infrastructure.
So you're saying you have to contact the government and
well, the
have
government gets involved a lot of the times for like specific valves that you make and stuff. They need to know about it. So yeah, that's kind of where this conspiracy theory comes from. And that's kind of like it's the same with like an oil pipeline. They're always hot topics, hot current events, hot political topics, and it's kind of for like a similar reason. You need that oil, you know, keep things moving.
Yeah, that's really crazy. But so then what? The conspiracy theory is that this company had the Israelis were able to use this company's like infrastructure to infiltrate under some pipes or
Yeah,
something.
and then the Israeli assassin used the pipelines to escape, got on that company's private jet or whatever, like used to escape. That's
yeah.
have you heard about
so
that?
Now it makes sense. Yeah. I was the one who told you about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
The plane that took off an hour after and then turned off its radar, which apparently is okay, I guess, or something. There's
conflicting
muddied the
statements
waters.
there. So I believe the company said that they got permission to turn off their radar because they were in a rural area. But Kash Patel made a statement where he said, no, they didn't turn it off. It was in a rural area, so it was like misreported, like it was bad signal.
That's what I heard, is that because of where they're flying, planes are generally allowed to turn off their radar or something.
Yeah, but
then
Kash
he
Patel
says
didn't say that.
And then I think it comes back like 40 minutes later or something.
It turns back on
its radar, and then it comes back.
Yeah, so like the real assassin like fled through the pipeline, got in that plane, they turned off the transponder, landed. So that's a conspiracy theory.
Was underground
when he shot Charlie Kirk. Yes, and that it might have been from the back. Also, is what people are saying.
And so that's the one thing I will say. If you watch the graphic footage, which we will not show.
No,
here,
we're not going to show. People are saying that there was no exit wound on Charlie that they could see in the video. So people are saying he got shot from the front and the bullet stayed in him, a 30-06 bullet, which should have created an exit wound, which is like crazy. Right. So people are saying, the conspiracy theorists are saying he actually got shot from the back. So what you saw on the video that everyone saw was the exit wound?
The exit wound, yeah. And so and I am by no means an expert. However, I've put thousands of rounds through a 30-30, a 30-06, a 300 mag, right? I've killed deer with a 30-06 before. That was the first gun I used. And so there is a hole. There is definitely a visible hole from the entrance wound. But most of the carnage is usually from the exit where it comes out.
Yes.
There's more viscera and fluids that come from the exit wound. And so to me, just an average person, and by the way, the shot that they say the guy made is by no means a crazy feat. An average person can do that as long as
it's not hard.
In a scope. So it's very plausible that happened too. Most likely the narrative.
It looks like it did happen, and it just hit an artery. But there's conspiracy theories.
Exactly. That's the other thing, is that it hit an artery where it's pumping blood at a high pressure, and so that's also why it could have just squirted out from the hole. It was just not saying that he was so precise to hit the artery. In my opinion, he was aiming for his forehead, and that
he might have learned from the Trump assassin to not go for the headshot.
Well, I mean, but yeah, so that's the other thing, is that normally you want to go for a heart shot, a center mass shot.
But also, he could have a bulletproof vest, so you might want to go to like the shoulder and neck area.
But like that's the thing, is like they normally wear low profile vests, and a 30-06 bullet, unless you're wearing like ceramic, I'm pretty sure
should still go through it.
Through that.
That's a good point.
It's nothing. Yeah. It also depends on the ammunition, which I don't know if they actually released what type of ammunition was fired. They only released what was on the casing. So.
Yeah, I don't really know about that. Yeah, the bullet was in him. Like they got. It's like a whole. It's basically another magic bullet conspiracy theory, just like JFK.
About to say, just like the magic bullet. Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of why we're talking about it.
For the sake of the pipeline, I would see that somewhat consistent with, an exit wound. But the other thing is there wasn't a lot of viscera or, large chunks of things coming out.
Yeah. So who knows?
There wasn't a hole in his. There wasn't a chunky. I don't even want to know if.
There wasn't a 4-inch hole on the other side. Is what Alex Jones says there should have been.
Yes, and that's what I would also say. So like it's a toss up, who knows? It all depends, I guess, on the ammunition and
I kind of want to wait for
even,
more information from the FBI and look into it a little further down the road.
and this is assuming a 30-06 was even used as the weapon. This is just what we know is the official narrative. That might not have been the weapon in whatever conspiracy.
Yeah, and if you've been following the story, you know that official narrative is very much still developing and changing a little bit. So we don't, that's kind of why these conspiracy theorists develop conspiracies in the first place. Because like, if the FBI would just be a little more open with this investigation, it might make more sense to people. But there has been discrepancies. Especially with like how quickly they cleaned up the crime scene. Don't you think they would want to investigate that a little more? It kind of seems like they were covering it up really quickly. I mean, like, it was a political assassination. Like, if there's just a random murder in like an apartment, that apartment building is like blocked off for a long time. They don't let people in there. But they kind of cleaned up the area just like very fast. So people are calling that out. Like, what's the deal? Are you trying to just like shove this under the rug? Yeah, exactly. It's weird.
About how important those valves were to warfare, because if you just want to shut down someone's pipeline, let's say you want to shut off water.
Oh, she said it.
Or you want to shut off gas.
Hey, we're on TV.
Gasoline. Yeah, it makes sense why the government would want to be controlling pipelines and valves. But anyways, I started to ask myself.
That's us.
Oh, well, did anybody look into whether or not there was anything under Charlie Kirk when he was shot? Right? Because if we aren't accepting the narrative that that particular gun at that distance didn't pass through, and yet for whatever reason the feds scrambled to repave that area.
So that's a conspiracy theory. I looked into it. It doesn't look like they actually repaved the area, but they like cleaned it, basically. Cleaned it up.
Which, I mean, here's the thing, is it's a college campus.
Yeah, you got students that can't see blood and shit.
You gotta clean up. You can't just, I mean, but, I don't know how long crime scene investigation takes, right?
Well, they must have been done with it really quickly. I think it was cleaned up within about 36 hours or something, which is like, hopefully they got everything they needed in that time.
Well, that's the other thing I heard, is that apparently DNA technology is like crazy now. And that's how they were able to get the shooter's DNA, is that there's something called like a DNA vacuum or something, and it can get really small particles.
I heard they got it from the bullet casings, and they just tested those with his DNA, and it was a match, but they did it really fast.
Fucking idiot doesn't know to put on gloves when he's putting bullets in. Jesus Christ.
Maybe, as some people have speculated, he was shot from a closer distance. I started wondering, was there an access point to any valves? Were there any pipelines that could have been under Charlie? It turns out, I looked at some old pictures of where he was sitting, and there was a massive pipeline that was almost exactly behind where Charlie was sitting. Here's that maybe it's a water pipeline. I don't know.
So I don't really know what we're looking at.
Where's the pipeline?
Is it just this little thing here? This little white thing?
I have no idea.
But there it is under the flag.
Give us a red circle.
And to your right, I went into my tips line and I saw that somebody had messaged me about this. More than one person messaged me about this. They're like, hey, yeah, there's like a whole underground thing there.
So yeah, apparently to the right, there might be like an access to like a pipe, like an underground pipeline.
Underground maintenance area.
And if the assassin did shoot Charlie from that angle, what we did see was an exit wound, which would almost make more sense as to like that crazy amount of like gore and stuff. It was a terrible video. So if you're following that, let's continue.
To your right, you're observing those two little boxes, and they told me that was a trap door. Now, I'm not implying someone, popped up and shot Charlie, but that's like a close-up of that area. Yeah. I'm just implying that there's an entire underground there.
Yeah, and then they're saying they hopped down in here and escaped, basically.
And I remember when I looked at the footage, I felt like it was coming up. I don't know anything about ballistics. I'm not an expert. But if there was a hatch door nearby, then we can assume, as we should always assume with colleges, obviously stadiums, there's always an underground path. So I'm wondering, if the federal government has explored the possibility that somebody could have been under Charlie and done that, while everyone's looking around and thinking that a shot went off from here, if that was just maybe like decoy number 2, and actually Charlie was shot from beneath him, which then could maybe explain why there was no exit wound. Again, I'm theorizing because I have a right to. I have a right to think. And that is interesting to me. Where does it go? Where do the tunnels underneath UVU lead to, right? That's an interesting question. Maybe everyone's looking up when we should be looking below, right? Maybe we should be looking below if there is.
So yeah, that's enough of that conspiracy theory. She does, I don't want to watch this whole episode because it takes a while, but she does tie in George Zinn, the original person they thought was the real shooter. And now he could be like a decoy boy, basically. Like he could have been like paid to do that, to help the shooter escape through like potentially this like underground pipeline. I don't know. She's basically just saying, hey, FBI, look into it, see if it's true.
Yeah, and I mean, what kind of so it's just crazy to me that this guy immediately after the shot happens, some old guy isn't immediately like in shock or afraid or takes a second to like realize what's going on, but he's just like, oh, it was me that did it, right?
Right, and he's done weird stuff before. But then he gets caught with child porn on his computer now, which is, I mean, definitely could be a pedo, weird guy for sure, terrible, but I also know that child porn on the computer is usually the calling card of intelligence agencies. In conspiracy theory world, yeah. So people are saying, oh, he got a like child pornography charge, so basically he's in jail now, so reporters can't interview him and be like, hey, like, what the fuck were you doing there? And what's up with your links to 9/11? And also, he like called in a bomb threat at a marathon in Utah. Like, he's kind of a weird guy that it's had some weird run-ins. So people are saying like he could be like part of this whole conspiracy, like a paid actor, or involved in like something else, like deeper with it.
And so, additionally, the other thing is weird people do weird shit. So
that's what his lawyer says.
Yep. This could just be that, but it's just, this guy who has had a bunch of weird stuff before just happens to be, at the center of this very odd event.
Yeah, so that's the thing. Yeah, exactly. His lawyer said that he has mental health issues that causes him to make impulsive and dumb choices, but that doesn't really explain why he was like, he called it a threat at a marathon in Utah, but that doesn't really explain why he was at that Charlie Kirk event.
And that's 11 years ago.
Yeah, it was such a long time ago. And then we also have him, there's some video about him having comments about 9/11 and him knowing instantly that Al-Qaeda was responsible for it. We need to watch this video a little bit.
Who funded Al-Qaeda again?
The U.S.
It was the opening night of just on. It was an interesting time when I went to. I was in Denver just on September 10th, 2001, and I'm a huge Broncos fan, so I was. It was the opening night of Denver Broncos Stadium. I went down there, and we were playing the Giants that night. And so it was a huge event for us. I even remember
where's this guy recording
everything that happened.
That's the thing. I can't really find the original source to this video, but it looks like it's this Major Brent Taylor's Foundation. And yeah, they're interviewing George Zinn on his thoughts on 9/11, basically. And so it's just kind of more circumstantial evidence that he's like a paid actor to do stuff like this, and people are calling him the decoy boy for Kirk's assassin. So that's kind of why we were talking about it. That's kind of why he got dragged into this.
Wow, that first comment.
Yeah, you got some crazy comments about all this stuff on Twitter, like it's a psyop and stuff like that, and yeah, like it's crazy stuff. Pretty funny. And then here it kind of goes into this like globalist conspiracy theory. This kind of like ties it back in with more stuff. So
the globalism, the one world government.
Yeah, people are like comparing it to like the Bolshevik Revolution, saying that like Jewish people like funded this Russian Bolshevik Revolution to like bring in like the New World Order, stuff like that. And then people are kind of making comparisons with that like those same kind of entities or aligned groups are funding like BLM and Antifa to do stuff like assassinate Charlie Kirk. To, I don't know, there's a couple different, to bring in like the New World Order or bring in like a war, the Great Reset is like how kind of people think about it. So we just had to bring that up, talk about it a little bit. People have been making these kind of conspiracies for a while. And this is our last little story about this conspiracy. So people are saying, what is it? Erica Kirk is a honeypot. So we're going to look into this. When I first saw this TikTok, I was like, oh, this is just some girl making it up. And then if you fact check her, not all of what she says is true, but a good amount is true. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to watch this and I'll show you the true stuff that she's saying.
This lady says stuff that like is just so crazy, but there's a lot of truth in what she says for sure.
Yeah, there is actually.
It's just crazy to think about.
It is. Yeah, it adds to this whole conspiracy. Absolutely. So we got to cover it.
Competes in Miss USA, a pageant owned by ... Trump. Okay, want to know something really weird? So she had said in a podcast that she had never competed in pageants and had never done any modeling before, until one day she receives an invitation in the mail to become a model and start doing pageants. And the pageants that she started doing were Miss USA pageants owned by Trump. So she modeled for Trump. She was one of Trump's pageant girls. But did you know that she was also a casting director at the same time that she was doing all of this stuff for Trump? Now, she doesn't specify.
So people there will claim similarities between her and Ghislaine Maxwell
On her website, if she worked as a casting director for Trump, but around the time that she was claiming to be a casting director, she also owned a ministry that was working with the U.S. military in Romania. The area in Romania where she was operating this ministry had a bunch of locals accusing these evangelical ministries of kidnapping children and trafficking them out of the country. These children were being found in the UK, in Israel, and were also being sent to undisclosed private islands. Locals demanded authorities look into it.
So yeah, she's saying that Erica Kirk had some missionary type thing in Romania where they traffic kids for Epstein. We'll look into that a little bit. There is some truth to it, but obviously that's not all true.
But they never did. Now, Charlie Kirk really wanted the Epstein files released, but did his wife? Prior to marrying Charlie Kirk, she was...
Right, and Charlie did make comments before he was assassinated about Epstein and how they should release the files. That is a real thing there.
A multi-millionaire on her own, and since his passing, she's also amassed all of his wealth plus an additional at least $5 million in donations. She's currently considered the most powerful woman in the United States with mega fans.
Okay, I think that explains the conspiracy. She's just talking about other stuff that
doesn't really matter.
It doesn't really matter. Yeah. So the first thing I want to cover is, how did they meet? How did Charlie and Erica meet? And this video is Erica Kirk explaining how they first met. So, you know, it definitely ties into this whole conspiracy theory that we're covering. So take a listen.
Let's find out.
So if you ask him, this is the typical husband-wife. Like, the husband has a very Spark Notes version, condensed, and then the woman has the longer, more meandering version. So I'll try to blend the two. It was a while ago. I can't even keep track of dates anymore with babies and anniversary dates and everything else in between. So anyways, so we had met through a family friend. He had invited me to the office opening for Turning Point USA, which I know several of you guys are supporters of, so thank you for all of your support for Turning Point USA. And so I went to the office opening, and he was like, you need to meet the CEO, and I was like, okay, great. I don't know. I was not familiar with that world at all. But the interesting point is that year, that was in August. In May, I had taken a pilgrimage with my mom to Israel. And my whole intention of that trip was to find my future husband. If there was a hole in a rock anywhere to put a prayer, and those of you who've been to Israel, you know that the Wailing Wall, all the different places you can stick a prayer on a little piece of paper, that was me. Like, had a piece of paper everywhere, little, put in prayer, God heard me, answered. So that was my whole thing. So after that, it was our last day on that trip, and there was this most precious server that was there, and he looked at me at the end of the trip, and I was saying goodbye, and he was like, I'll see you again soon. He's like, I'll see you here in about 1.5 years from now with your husband. And I was like, oh.
I haven't heard this part of the story.
I know, because I usually give this, I feel like I need to give okay. So we're giving like the real, and so I usually don't tell this part because it's very intimate, but I feel like I should. Bloom where you're planted, right? Okay. So he said that to me. I carried that in my heart. I timestamp things in my phone. When someone says something or I overhear something, I use my notes all the time, and I like to look back to see what time that was, what year that was. I save all that. Anyway, so I have it in my phone. And thrown off by it, held it in my heart, didn't think anything of it. Then I went to go to the ticket line to leave. I was with my mom. There's only a few flights out at the night in Israel back to the States. And so I was standing there at the ticket line, and there was a guy who was checking out with the guy, you know what I'm talking about, get your ticket, check your bag. And I see him, and I was like, I tell my mom, I was like, that guy looks really familiar. And my mom was like, go say hi. Those of you who know my mom, like, that's something go say hi and say hi to him. I'm like, oh my gosh, no, I don't know. I just looks familiar. And so anyways, flight, fast forward from May to August. I'm standing in the office, and our family friend was like, you need to meet the owner, blah, blah, blah. And he turns around and was like, oh, hi, you're the guy from the ticket line?
So if you're following that story, basically the first time that they met, or at least she noticed him, was in Israel. That it was like a trip with her mom, and she wanted to find her husband on that trip. And it just kind of ties into this whole conspiracy theory. It's weird. Or it's just kind of like a funny coincidence. How about that?
Yeah, well, this is like, I feel like we heard multiple stories. This is like the second story we heard from her where it's like slightly different.
Well, that's the thing. So she usually doesn't talk about like that Israel trip. Usually when she says how she met Charlie, she says, oh, I went in for an interview for TP USA, and like he was there, and at the interview, Charlie was like, I'm not going to hire you, like, let's date. And so that's kind of the story that I saw. But this is like a more full story. So she had actually first seen him in Israel. Next up, we have more information. So basically, yeah, this lady here is like talking about the whole conspiracy, and we're just kind of going into the parts of it that are true. Here we have, so yeah, she was Miss Arizona for like a beauty pageant one year. I forget exactly which year. And then she tried to be Miss USA. Okay, she won the Miss Arizona in 2012, and then went on to the Miss USA 2012 pageant. And that's hosted by the Miss Universe organization that was co-owned by Donald Trump. And that's kind of how this all plays into like the Epstein thing, if you're following that. And that's also where there's some allegations of like sexual misconduct or like sexual harassment by Donald Trump on these Miss Universe organization models. So that part is actually true, that she worked for that organization, which was co-owned by Donald Trump. And so, yeah, people are saying she's like another Ghislaine type person, which is like kind of out there, but, you know, we're looking into the information that could lead people to think that. And this is kind of why it's being brought up. Then we have the whole very crazy part about the Romanian ministry. So we're going to go into this a little bit. This source is kind of like, this is like a conspiracy theory website. It's not like a real news thing. But it talks about it. So apparently she ran a ministry in Romania from 2012 to 2017. And then people are saying there was like Romanian kids that were flown out from that city, and there was like no real investigation into it. So there might have been like, people are saying that they were corrupt and got away with it. They maybe like bribed officials. We have like an anonymous blog poster saying that I watched them line up orphans, give them lollipops, say go with Aunt Erica to Disneyland. The kids didn't come back. And then we have some like photos. I don't know how true these photos are, but apparently this is a photo of Erica with these Romanian kids, these Romanian children. I don't even know if this is real either, but it's like a photo of her Romanian Angels like organization where she like helps Romanian kids, and you can like adopt them. And again, I don't even know if this is like true or not. This all could just be made up. But that's why people kind of think that like this lady believes it that made the TikTok. And then yeah, people are saying like one of the people that adopted the kids is like a pedophile, and like some of them ended up on Epstein's island. So it's juicy stuff. And if I had to give my opinion on this, I kind of think this is like, this might, let me check the date on when this was posted. So it was posted September 16th. So I almost think this is like a a left-wing meme, like a meme story that's made up to like shit on Erica Kirk. And I don't even know if all of this is true, but I wouldn't be surprised if she did have some kind of charity in Romania. Maybe that part's true, but the fact that she was like trafficking kids to Epstein is probably just made up by people on the left to try and give her bad press. That's kind of what I think about it, in my opinion. I don't really know. And that, I think that concludes all of our sources.
The Eric Kirk thing is pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's a fun one. That is a crazy one, absolutely.
Yeah, the whole has a ministry, and there's actual legitimate like BBC articles about kids going missing.
No
She
like
has ties
direct
to
link that she
Israel.
did it. Yeah, exactly. That's kind of why that conspiracy is going on right now. So yeah, let's start from the beginning. We have AIPAC, a pro-Israel lobbying group that, although it's pro-Israel, doesn't have to register under FARA. Their predecessor, the American Zionist Council, in 1962, was told that they did have to register under FARA, and as a result, they disbanded, and that's what led to the creation of AIPAC. At that same time, in 1962, Israel was developing nuclear weapons, and the United Nations, backed by JFK, signed a resolution to limit nuclear weapons testing. And then after that, we all know what happens. JFK gets assassinated. So we talked about in the video the links between the conspiracy theories that like pro-Israel people assassinated JFK with the conspiracy theory that that same thing happened to Charlie Kirk. We also have the United Nations just on September 12th, very recently, endorsing on a two-state solution between Israel and Palestine, which the US and Israel voted against, but basically the rest of the entire world voted for. And then we do have examples of Trump flip-flopping on, he used to have he didn't used to have such a pro-Israel stance. We have a video here from 2017 of him asking Bibi Netanyahu to hold back on those West Bank settlements. And that was about when he started his first term as president. And then nowadays he's posting pictures like in support of Israel, and he is very closely tied to Bibi Netanyahu. They have a very strong relationship, so strong that he will actually send stealth bombers to use like bunker busting bombs on Iran to destroy their nuclear research facilities.
And they get nominated for a peace prize.
And then,
it.
yeah, and then Bibi Netanyahu nominated Trump for a peace prize because of it, and Trump was very grateful. So that's just kind of how his opinions have changed. We have a conspiracy theory that Kash Patel's girlfriend is a honeypot, an Israeli honeypot. The guy who started that conspiracy is getting sued for $5 million by Alexis Wilkins. And then we covered how people drew that conclusion. It's because she used to work for PragerU, a conservative media nonprofit. The owner of PragerU once served in an Israeli intelligence unit. That's kind of where that conspiracy came from. We have Candace Owens' amazing conspiracy that maybe the real shooter for Charlie Kirk used an underground pipeline and escaped that way, and that would explain kind of how there was no exit wound on Charlie, and it would also potentially explain some discrepancies with the FBI's investigation into it. Also, it ties in that what was his name again? George Zinn, I believe. It also ties in George Zinn as to he's the guy who went out and said, like, I did it. I was the one who shot Charlie Kirk, and they apprehended him. And we kind of talked about that whole conspiracy. Basically, he could be like a decoy boy, and he ties back into pushing the narrative that Al-Qaeda was behind 9/11. I don't exactly know when he was recorded saying that or how long ago that was. He also made a bomb threat at a marathon in Utah in 2014. So he's closely related to a lot of these very popular tragic current events. And people are saying he could be like a crisis actor or like an intelligence agent or something.
Or a patsy.
A patsy, a decoy boy.
They got to pay someone to put in prison for something.
Yeah, and then he got arrested. He's still in prison. They picked him up because they thought he shot Charlie Kirk, but then they held him because they found CP on his phone. And then the conspiracy theorists are saying, oh, they just did that so that he doesn't get released and can't be interviewed by people. So it's harder to get information on it. That's some fun stuff. We talked about the similarities between Antifa and like BLM or other like left-wing extremist groups with the Bolshevik Revolution, how potentially pro-Israel people were or are funding both. We don't really go into that too much, but that is a whole nother conspiracy you could spend hours looking into. It's a fun one, but it is just a conspiracy. Keep that in mind. And then we have the conspiracy with Erica Kirk, which is a crazy one. Here are the standout facts about this conspiracy theory that are actually kind of true. She did meet Charlie Kirk in Israel. That part is like a thing. She did work for the Miss Universe organization, which is co-owned by Trump. And that whole organization and like some of Trump's interactions in there tie into like some of Trump's sexual harassment accusations and also Epstein. And then she had some kind of Romanian like nonprofit that was supposed to like help, I believe, orphans or like kids in Romania. And then there are like either real or fake like allegations that organization was trafficking kids, and the conspiracy theorists say that they were trafficking kids to Epstein, and that's kind of how this all gets tied in. Oh, and then I left out just the fact that this whole globalist conspiracy theory, they say that there is dirt on Trump in the Epstein files, and Epstein is like an Israeli intelligence operative or agent.
Mossad agent.
Yeah, and that's kind of why he's changed his opinions on how he interacts with Netanyahu, and he's kind of changed his support for Israel because they might have Epstein dirt on him, and that, you know, that kind of ties into this whole conspiracy theory here. Don't fall into it too much, but I do encourage you to look into it more. Maybe there's some more information we should have gone over that we didn't bring up. We tried to cover it as best we could. Yeah, so if you have any questions, leave a comment, send us an email. Definitely subscribe and check out other videos on the channel, and have a good night.